Good morning. Thank you, Jeremy. And I was not smirking, I was smiling at the swag comments because I have received some in the past and it's quite good. So I encourage everybody to visit the trade show. So we're here today to talk about pathways to professional diversity through library internships. And I'm going to share with you our agenda, what we plan to go over today. We're going to talk very briefly about who we are. And then we are going to do an overview of the Public Library Association's Inclusive Internship Initiative, which we both have participated in. Andrea is going to share some of her experiences being a PLA mentor in the summer of 2019. I'm going to talk a little bit about being a mentor in the summer of 2018. And then my hope is that my intern, Cadest, will be joining us to tell you some of her experiences with us that summer. Andrea is going to talk about the reality of whiteness in the library profession and how that fits into our experiences with the PLA internship program. Then we're going to talk a little bit about a proposal that we have that we think that we could adapt the program here in New York State and get some feedback from you, quickly talk about next steps, and then have time for Q&A. So both Andrea and I have ties to Buffalo. Of course, the Bills are doing much better, I think, Andrea, you would admit, than the Sabres are currently. Yeah. So I couldn't resist that dig. So I'm going to let you go ahead and let everybody know what your day job is and some of the work that you do on a state level.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I am the Outreach and Training Coordinator for the Pioneer Library System. So we support the work of the 42 public libraries in Ontario, Wayne, Wyoming, and Livingston counties. So we're in the Finger Lakes, a lovely, lovely region. And that is my day job. And then my involvement with NYLA. So I am the Rural Libraries Roundtable Vice President until the end of this conference. And then I will just be involved with the roundtable. I am part of the court executive board, so that's the working with corrections and outreach. And I'm also, it's not an official title, but I'm kind of the liaison between the outreach coordinators around the state and Callisto.
Okay, and I'm Cassie Guthrie. I'm the library director of the Greece Public Library, which is just outside of the city of Rochester, New York. That is my day job. Some of the work that I do on a state level, I am on NYLA Council in the role of New York State Chapter Counselor to the American Library Association. I'm also the chair of NYLA's Legislative Committee, and what am I now? I am treasurer of New Yorkers for Better Libraries Political Action Committee. So the first thing in our agenda that we wanted to tell you about, some of you may be familiar with the program, but pretty much the overarching goal of the initiative is to introduce students from diverse backgrounds to careers in librarianship. And PLA began this with their first cohort, which was the summer of 2017. And they've continued it every year since until this past summer, of course, when the pandemic was with us. But they're moving that cohort into the summer of 2021. And the funding for the PLA version of this came through the Institute for Museum and Library Services. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we received one of these PLA grants and participated during the summer of 2018. And up on the screen, I have the basics of how the program works. So if you receive a grant, you're responsible for recruiting an intern. And the grant provides paid summer-long internships to high school students to work at your library in the summer. They give you a flat rate. I believe it's $3,500. And it's up to the individual libraries on what they want to pay, how many hours they want to have work. And then the intern comes in and works with one staff person who's identified as the library mentor on a community-based learning project. PLA also funds travel and housing for both the intern and the mentor to a kickoff event. Cadest and I traveled to Washington, D.C. for the kickoff. We had a tour of the Library of Congress, And then our wrap-up event, which is the last bullet on the screen, was in Chicago. And I think, Andrea, yours were flipped. So you had your kickoff event in Chicago, and the closeout was in Washington. And throughout the whole summer grant program, there are some really wonderful online learning, networking available, both for the mentors and also for the interns. So Andrea, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk a little bit about your summer with your intern.
Thanks, Cassie. So my internship, well, my intern was with me last summer, 2 summers ago, I guess it is now, in 2019. And so Dominique joined us as a high school graduate. So she graduated, started with us, and she was going to be attending college that summer, or that fall. So like Cassie talked about, the internship began with both of us traveling to Chicago. You can see the picture of us in front of the bean. And we did the kickoff event with other mentors and interns around the country. And it really was kind of a good bonding experience, but also a good learning experience. So we toured the University of Illinois at Chicago's library, both of us attended quite a few master classes. Some of them were just for mentors, some of them were just for interns, some were for both. And there were some classes that were taught by different mentors, and the goal was to expose the interns to all the different types of work and projects and things that the public libraries are doing. And there's also a lot of, there were sessions and a lot of discussions about what the community-based learning project that each intern was required to do as a part of this program, what they might want to do at their library. So it was an opportunity to kind of start thinking and have conversations with their mentor, but also with other interns and the group as a whole. So we came back home, and that's when the real work began. That's when the fun begins. So throughout the summer, Dominique, she helped organize the library booth at several of our county fairs, because we have 4 counties that we are supporting. She learned about the work that we do to support prison libraries, and she was actually doing that work. She wrote articles for our internal staff newsletter that got shared with all of our member libraries. She attended quite a few professional development opportunities and trainings with me, and together we visited a lot of libraries. And so we spent a lot of time on the road. And during these visits, she was able to talk with both staff and patrons and learn about how each of our libraries support their communities in really, really different and unique ways. So like I said, we spent a lot of time on the road. Our kind of whole service area is 4 counties, and it covers 2,500 square miles. So spent a lot of time in the car together. And that's where we would really have some really, really good conversations about libraries and librarianship and the work that we do, and also about the community-based learning project. And so she kept coming back to wanting to do something around race, because she knew that her lived experience was incredibly different from many people who were in our community. And she wanted to provide a space and an opportunity to bring people together to have open and honest conversations around race. So what she ended up doing for her project, she hosted 2 panel discussions, and they were called Race in Our Community. And so 2 different libraries hosted them. And she, part of this project, you do the work. So she learned what it meant to put a program together, finding doing all the legwork to find the panelists, learn how to promote the event, working with the library to promote the event, but doing it also herself, arranging all of the logistics, even something as simple as like, what is the room setup going to look like? What type of AV do you need? And then she also had to learn how to actually kind of best practices for facilitating a panel. That was not a skill that she had. That's not a skill that a lot of us have. So, and this was a huge hurdle for her to overcome. Public speaking is and still is, kind of a fear of hers. So I personally loved being able to see her confidence grow as, we practiced. We did a lot of practice panel discussions between me and her, and just her confidence, and she got more and more comfortable doing it. So these panels were absolutely amazing to attend. They were really well attended at both libraries. The conversations were very open and honest, and a safe environment was really she worked really hard to create a safe environment to have these conversations. So she showed libraries and our communities that we can have these conversations. Libraries are and can be a place to hold these conversations and to be a leader in the community for it. And so it was really important for the community to see this, but it was also really important for library staff to see that this could happen. It wasn't something that during my time here at Pioneer that I've seen our libraries prior to this do. And one feedback comments that she got from one of our library staff was that they realized that Dominique's panel really kind of started the momentum to fuel future discussions like this at their library. And while I cannot directly attribute it to her panel, that specific library and other libraries in the past year and a half have held very successful panels and conversations and programs around race and community. So the momentum really has kept going. So she did her project, she was wrapping up her internship, and the final thing to do was to go to our final gathering in Washington, D.C. And so this trip, that involved a behind the scenes tour of the Library of Congress. So that picture of her standing kind of at the Capitol in the background is actually on the patio that's right off of the Librarian of Congress's personal office. So we really, really got to see behind the scenes working, which for me also was absolutely wonderful. Cassie and I both kind of have talked about how these experiences are, yes, it is about the intern, but it's also really, really a really rewarding experience for us as well, and the staff that we worked with. Because the staff, we get to have these, young, exciting individuals working with them in the library, and it was just so refreshing and energizing, and to have that fresh voice. So we come back from DC. The internship is over. And while Dominique does not, as of today, plan to go into the library field, I could see it potentially happening, but I don't tell her that. When we talk, she still, a year and a half later, talks about how her experience really opened her eyes to diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And that's what she's planning on pursuing in her career. And so that really has kind of directed her career path, and that's still the path that she's headed on. My hope is that if she doesn't end up working in libraries, that libraries will end up hiring her to support their work. And the other kind of pluses of this, she always has been a library user, but now she is a true library advocate. She really, really gets, both from the user side and from the staff side, how important the work that we do is, and how important it is to really get the word out about what we do. I'm going to pass it over to you, Cassie.
Thank you very much. And I do share all of what Andrea just said in terms of, I really believe that my staff and I got more out of the experience than maybe cadets did. It was her enthusiasm, and we learned so much from her. So my intern had just finished her junior year at Greece Arcadia High School when she joined the staff of the Greece Public Library during the summer of 2018. And in addition to working on her community-based learning project, which she is going to tell you about herself in a few minutes, She spent the summer learning about all aspects of the operations of a public library. She learned how to shelve books. She learned how to check out books. She shadowed librarians and clerks at service desks. She met individually with staff to learn about how a book goes from arriving in a box from Baker and Taylor to the shelf for a patron to check it out. She learned about collection development, weeding, library administration, library programming, and much more. We also spent a good amount of time doing outreach in the community. That's a personal love of mine. So clockwise from the upper left, she came with me to do a Free Books for Kids program where we give out free books to children that are funded by the Rotary Club of Greece and also the Friends of the Greece Public Library. So that's a shot of us in front of K Jewelers at the Greece Ridge Mall. Next, I was enrolled in the Palmer Institute certification program for library administration during that summer, and that's Jerry Nichols. Many of you, I'm sure, know him. I asked Jerry if she could join me at one of the classes on human resources, and he was thrilled, so she attended that with me. Next up, she was a really good sport about dressing up in all of the mascot costumes that my children's librarians were interested in. So from Paw Patrol, and that was a really hot just
Sorry, just looks like Cassie might be having a little bit of trouble with her internet feed right now. So in the interim, Cadest, I am going to jump in and throw you in front of the bus because I have heard so much greatness about you that I know that you're not going to be flustered by that. So while we wait for Cassie to reconnect, can you tell us in your own words about the program?
Sure, I can. Okay, so hi, I'm Cadest. It's really nice to meet you all and to be a part of this discussion. This internship has really impacted me a lot, so I was really happy when Cassie talked to me about this and asked if I wanted to participate. So one of my favorite things about this internship was getting to travel. I think you guys already talked about how we went to Washington and to Chicago. And that's when they told us about what this internship was what this internship was about, and how I really liked how open-ended it was. They really let us decide what we wanted to do. They wanted our passion to show, our creativity to show. And though they gave us ideas and we could talk to the other, we made connections with the other students that were part of this internship. It was really up to us with what we wanted to do, and which was really nice for me. So I'm a very social person. I love talking to other people. I love working with other people. So I knew immediately when hearing about this internship and what I could do with it, that I wanted to do this with other people. And another passion of mine is social justice. I'm very in the know about what's going on. And a lot of the things that are going on do impact me. And even if I'm not impacted, I hate seeing injustices happen. So I wanted that to be another one of my focuses. So bringing those two things together, that's how the Delegates of Change, my project, came about. The Delegates of Change was a group of kids that I met volunteering at the library and that were my friends. And I brought them all together. And I kind of told them what my vision was, what I wanted to do with the Delegates of Change. And it resonated with a lot of the people there because the Delegates of Change was created from there. And we were able to do a lot of things during that summer. We did volunteer work. We volunteered at the Special Day of Play on Ontario Beach, where we helped set up games for kids with special needs. We did culture crafts. We created culture crafts, and I really have to thank Cassie, because she helped me really create the posters. And there's a lot of things that go into creating programs, which I did not know about prior to this, and it was a wonderful learning experience. We had members of the DC, the Delegates of Change. They created crafts from different cultures, and they had little tables set up where kids could go around and they could create those crafts and learn a little fun facts about different cultures. But my favorite thing that we did has to be our first Teen Talk. The Teen Talk idea came about when we wanted to talk more about social issues and raise social awareness. And so we did this thing where we wanted to watch a video, and then we wanted to have a discussion around it. And we chose the TED Talk, The Danger of a Single Story by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie for this. And if you haven't watched it, it's a powerful, amazing TED Talk. It has impacted me a lot, and I still watch it sometimes because it's just the more you watch it, the more you gain from it. We had help from the city library when we first did this. So students from the city library came over. I had my English teacher that came, and we sat around a circle and a table. We watched the TED Talk where she talks about her experiences with the danger of a single story and how. So she was born in Nigeria, and she went to college in the US, and her white roommate was so surprised that she could speak English, and that when she asked about her tribal music, she said Mariah Carey, and this
It looks like we may have lost Cadest. So Cassie or Andrea, I'm going to ask you to jump back in.
Okay, yeah, this is the joys of technology. I'm hoping that Cadest is going to be able to get back in, but I think you can see the screen on the slide, the pictures on the slide. So that picture in the lower right corner is that urban suburban discussion that she hosted around that TED Talk. And I was able to attend that as well. And it was really very interesting to hear the perspectives from some teens who came up who were part of a group at the Rochester Public Library talking to some members of the Delegates of Change. And I'm hoping we're going to get her back because she's much more interesting talking about this than I am. Jeremy, do you have any sense of whether she's dialed back in?
Yep, I'm seeing her name. She's back.
There she is. Yay. Yep.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I think I got disconnected. Yeah, so she talks about that, and a lot of us could resonate with what she was talking about. Something similar has happened to me where this has happened in my in 8th grade so I'm actually from Ethiopia. I was born there. I came here when I was like around 8 years old, and I was just talking to my friend, telling her a story about my childhood, and I was telling her how I had ice cream with my uncle this one time, and I remember she looked at me like confused, like, ice cream? Like, you guys have ice cream there? Like, where do you keep it? And just like simple ideas that sounded ridiculous to me. Like, how could we not have it? But understanding that there has been a single story created of Africa, of what that place is like, and that's like the importance of stories, because stories are what lead to these single stories. When you paint something as just being this one thing and not this multicultural place, that's how people are misinformed and have misguided ideas about how things are. And that led to such a wonderful, amazing, like, eye-opening discussion with all the kids, and a lot of us being minorities. We talked about how that has impacted us and how that has sometimes taken opportunities away from us. And it just really, sitting there, like, that was an amazing experience for me, something that I will always remember. And after this discussion, I talked to my English teacher, and we did something similar with her after school, which is still going on now. She still has these after school talks where she will show videos to her students, and they'll watch it and they'll talk about it. Sometimes I'm able to join because, especially now with COVID, everything is online. So sometimes I'll join in and talk. And another thing that space creates is a safe space for students to talk about very certain topics, and it creates a safe space for them, and they feel comfortable because they've talked about these things before, and it's a very open space where people can say their views without judgment. And we talk about, like, we started studying like some ground rules on how to address certain things. If someone says something that is hurtful to you, like how to come at it instead of always take it, that always attack an idea, not the person kind of mindset. And always, when speaking, it's also up to you to make sure that you are coming from kindness and not with intent to hurt someone. You know, like we understand that there are certain things that we are unaware of. We all have our biases. We all are part of, we also create single stories for other people. So we just have to be aware of it and we have to dispel that for ourselves. With the DC, we are not able, like a lot of us are in college and we're going to colleges in different, similarly, anything, and especially with everything
Looks like Kidda's connection is unstable.
Okay, so maybe what we should do at this point, Andrea, is go on to the next. Yeah, and then we'll, when you're finished with that piece of it, if Cadestis is able to join us and maybe take some questions. Cadest, hang on one sec.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and jump ahead to the next slide. So you've heard about our experiences with the internship, both from the intern perspective, from the mentor perspective. And now I kind of want to take it back a step and talk about why, a little bit of background information and a little bit of why Cassie and I and so many others are really believe so strongly in this work and why it is so important. So I think we can all agree librarianship is a very, 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 very white profession. According to the Census Bureau, it is over 80% of librarians are white. And we can also agree that this is not at all representative of the communities that we serve, and even of the United States as a whole. And so there's a multitude of ways that libraries are working to overcome this challenge. And I could go on and talk about all of these, but that's not the focus of today's presentation. But I do want to bring up a few kind of initiatives and efforts. So for those of you who may have been at NYLA's membership meeting yesterday, Tim Fergal talked about the Pathways to Librarianship Task Force that is December 3rd is going to have their first meeting. And so the goal of that is to kind of look at how we can create alternative pathways for historically discriminated groups to more easily enroll in library and information science programs, attain graduate degrees in librarianship, and then how we can, once people are in the profession, how we can retain them, how they can stay in the profession and advance successfully throughout the profession. And so more information is going to be coming out about that task force, but I think it's something that's very important, and I applaud NYLA for taking this on. So I do also want to talk about specifically equity, diversity, and inclusion initiatives and why they are also so incredibly important to increasing the diversity of our profession. Cannot state how important it is to acknowledge and accept that the target audience of EDI training and work needs to be and should be the existing and predominantly white staff at the library. That is the audience. So when these staff, when myself included, when we attend a training or we read a book or simply have a conversation with a colleague, it can help each of us learn about anti-racism, explore our personal biases, helps us to come to accept and acknowledge that so many of us, we have a great amount of privilege in both our personal and professional lives. It's also important while we do this work that we as library staff, trustees, volunteers, that we spend time looking at the history of librarianship and how we have, as a profession, we've historically upheld systemically racist practices. And sometimes we even still do that today. And we really need to look at that and acknowledge and accept that. So we need to look at our policies, practices, and procedures and how we can change those and how we can adapt them to ensure that they are more inclusive. And this is the work that's being done through equity, diversity, and inclusion efforts. And this is all part of the really critical work that we are doing, we need to continue doing, so that we can strive towards ensuring that libraries truly are for everyone. And this is important so that we can say to our communities, you know, we are open to you. But it's even, in my mind, almost more important that we need to do this work so that we can say to all of our current staff, our future staff, that the library the work environment that they are coming into, that they're working in, is safe, welcoming, and accessible for everyone. Because how can we say that we want to increase the diversity of our profession if we aren't putting in the work to make sure that our work environments are welcoming, equitable, and inclusive? And so Cassie and I are here today because we do want to do more than just acknowledge and lament about the vast whiteness of our profession. We do that. We do acknowledge it. We are frustrated by the reality of the situation, but we're here. We want to do the work, and we are doing the work. So we know that you can't just read a book, create a LibGuide, attend a training, and say, okay, check that box, I'm done. I did the work. We have to, and we want to continue to push forward and support the systemic change all across New York libraries. And we're doing that. Cassie's about to share our plan on how we as New York State libraries can develop a pipeline to help increase the diversity of our profession by getting high school students from underrepresented groups interested in and excited about library work.
Thank you, Andrea. And Cadest is still on the line. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the presentation, and then hopefully when we get to the question and answer period, if she is still available, she can answer questions. So as Andrea said, we really feel strongly that this is such a valuable initiative that PLA has put together to get high school students who represent the diversity of the communities that we all serve interested in library work. And it's not just necessarily, getting an MLS, and there is all that good work that is being put together by a task force. But Cadest, when she left us at the end of the summer, we had an opening for a library page. So she came to us and started working as a page. And then we had an opening for a circulation desk clerk. So we liked her so much as a page that we ended up hiring her for that position as well. So it really can be seen as a pathway into libraries. So we really, Andrea and I have been talking, and Jeremy, about how we might take PLA's program and adapt it to New York State, using the New York Library Association as the administrative sponsor. There was a question, I think, that came through the chat about the travel and whether or not that was covered by the PLA grant. It was. The travel, the accommodations in both Washington, D.C. and Chicago, all of that was covered. The food was all covered. So as you can see, it's not an inexpensive grant. So before we go too far down the path of trying to figure out how something like this could be funded on a New York State level, we wanted to check in with the library community to get some feedback. And before we knew we were going to be virtual, Andrea and I thought, we would have a discussion with you in person. We would get your thoughts and your ideas up on a flip chart and just really try to get that feedback before we go too far. But here we are on Zoom. So we have two questions that we'd like to get some feedback from all of you. And maybe Jeremy, you can pop on and speak to how they might be able to best answer these, if it's chat or if it's by raising a hand and speaking. And the first question is a program like the Public Library Association program something that you could see happening in your library over the summer?
And so if you would like to respond to that, you can drop it in the chat pane and I'll be pulling those off. So I see Maggie Foster's already put in a yes. There we go. They're popping off. I've got lots of yeses. Yeah, all yeses. And a few absoluties. Yeah, they're going by as fast as I can see them. So overwhelmingly yes.
Is there anyone who feels like they couldn't see this happening at their library? I guess would be a companion question.
While people are typing, I want to add that what Cassie talked about, the money piece, and that how the travel and everything was included. The only thing that Pioneer Library System had to pay for was my time. That was the only thing. Everything else was paid for. There was even, we were able to work it, so we were able to use a little bit of the grant from PLA to help support Dominique's panel, to pay for some of the supplies and things needed for that. So the goal is to make it as easy as possible for people to participate, to keep the barriers as low as possible.
And to that barrier, Andrea, you've preemptively answered the current concern that I've seen pop up in the chat, which is the barrier that people were mentioning is the funding piece, and how to underwrite the expense of the program.
Cassie and I have ideas.
We have some ideas. So maybe I'll go on. So the next question is related. If you could see this happening at your library, obviously if you could see it happening, you think it would be beneficial. If you could give us an idea of why.
And again, feel free to throw comments in the chat while those comments are coming in. Also note that if you're on Zoom, you raise your hand, or if you're on the conference site, if you click on participants, there's a button where you can raise your hand. If you'd like to virtually come up to the mic, you're welcome to. There was a question from Emily at Pearl River about if anyone's tackled this, if either of you are aware that anyone's working on the program during the days of COVID in a virtual format. If either of you have comments there. And then just also kind of an ancillary question, was PLA membership required in order to participate?
I don't remember. No, because I honestly don't believe I was a member at that point. So I'm almost positive the answer is no to that.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that, but I think you're right, Andrea. I don't recall that being a requirement. Because it was an IMLS funded program, so
right.
That seems like it might be right.
And I do not know of anything that is being done kind of internship wise. That doesn't mean it's not happening though, right now in the virtual. And that is part of the reason Cassie and I recognized that it would be very hard to try to do this in 2021 with the variables and so much unknown, and really the program would have to be put together now and ready to go. So that's why we're proposing potentially summer of 2022 with the hope that things will kind of be a little more stable, and there's a few more knowns.
Excellent. And so some of the themes from the other comments that we're seeing are tied to how this program would tie into equity, diversity, and inclusion in library strategic plans, and how it would advance that.
Well, I can tell you from my experience, so our strategic plan at the time that Cadest was with us at the library, one of our service priorities was find new audiences. And Cadest brought in a group of teens who became the delegates of change, who started doing some really exciting things and bringing people into our library who maybe hadn't been there in a while. So I think that's a pretty direct connection to a strategic plan. Of course, everyone's plan is different, but I can't imagine that, and then there's a lot of leeway on what the community-based learning project could be. So if there was something that your library was really focused on that was in your strategic plan that you wanted some extra work on, that would be a perfect opportunity for the intern to tie right into some needs of the library.
Another question was that this program isn't being strictly limited or targeted to public libraries.
Well, I'm going to speak to that because we don't know exactly, but I will tell you the reason that PLA was able to do it in the way that they were able to do it is because if the program that PLA has put together is geared towards high school students. So for high school students, to do an internship, it needs to be in the summer because otherwise they're in school. I think there are probably opportunities, if we're able to do this on a state level, to adjust that. I think clearly if there were an intern who, I think, Andrea, you said that she had finished high school.
Yes.
So she might have had some, availability at other times of the year before she went into college. But I think that is why PLA set it up that way. But we're certainly open to ideas about how it could work for a high school student other than summertime. Did that make sense? Andrea, help me out with that one. I don't think that made all that much sense.
Yeah, no, I think our experience is obviously in public libraries, and our experience with this internship is with public libraries. But there's going to be a slide coming up with if you want to get involved with the conversation. Yeah. And if you are not a public library and you really feel strongly about this.
And if you're an academic that has work in the summertime, or, a special library, or I guess a school library, again, like Andrea said, we're both in the public library arena. So it would just be a question of balancing the availability of a mentor that matched up with the time of an availability of an intern. And I guess from our experiences with PLA, that particular grant program was focused on high school students before or just as they were getting into their undergraduate degree, with an eye to maybe getting them excited enough that they might pursue a master's degree in library science. But certainly that doesn't have to be the case. And I see in the chat that one of our special librarians said, summer works for special libraries. Well, then, yes, absolutely.
So make sure you get involved in the conversation when we give you the opportunity to.
Do you want to go ahead to that, Andrea? And then we'll get to Q&A, and I think that would be a great time. Cadest is still with us. And while Andrea is talking now, if you have questions specifically for her, we'll try to get her back online during the Q&A session.
So kind of what is next? So Cass, we've got this idea that we are gathering input and beginning to kind of put together and formalize, but we do want to continue the conversation with everyone here and in the broader NYLA and New York State Library audience. So if you want to join in the conversation, share your ideas, or even just kind of stay up to date with what we may be putting out, Jeremy's going to be putting in the chat, if he already hasn't, the link to, it's just a really super quick survey for you to give us information so that we can then stay in touch with all of you as we continue to move forward in this conversation. And now I think we're going to open it up for any just general questions or feedback. And we'll focus on, if there's anything specifically for Cadest, we'll focus on that first.
And I'll just remind everyone that if you would like to come up to the mic in virtual terms, if you're on the NYLA conference site, if you click on participants, you'll then see the button to raise your hand, and we'll know that you'd like to be recognized, and we can get your audio connected so that you can voice your question, and also keeping an eye on the comments in the chat. So I have. I see Cheryl Knapp from the Western New York Library Resources Council. I'm sure we'll have some follow-up with Cheryl about how Winnie Lark can support this project as it's aligned with their new strategic plan. And Lucas Jennings from the Middle Country Public Library. What are your thoughts on civil service hiring practices? Not sure how it works in your counties, but I believe restrictions such as Rule of Three prohibit or stifle hiring diverse full-time staff.
I can't speak to the diverse hiring full-time staff in civil service. I do think that is currently being addressed, and I may even ask Jeremy to pop in, because that was talked about on the NYLA President's Forum this morning. And then Tim Fergal also spoke to a new task force that is being formed. Jeremy, can you just give a quick recap for that? But then when you're done, I will explain how it happened in my public library, and I'm a municipal public library that is both civil service and unionized.
Sure. So there's a number of parallel projects all running. We have the NYLA Council has formally moved what is a long-standing civil service task force into a civil service committee. And the chair for that is Jeff Kirkpatrick from the Bethlehem Public Library. They will continue the work of that committee and addressing the challenges that civil service poses to, well, lots of things. And then was it the other two task forces, Cassie? Is that what the other stuff I was supposed to? No, you were unmuted and then you muted. Sorry.
No, that's pretty much it. I think that I'm not trying to dodge the question, but I think it's a little bit beyond the scope maybe of what we're talking about. But let me speak to how we were able to do it at the Greece Public Library. So as I said, we're both a civil service library and a unionized library. We have a full-time and a part-time union. So we were not able, in our case, to hire our intern to work more than 15 hours a week. That was because of the part-time union contract. And for civil service purposes, we were not able to hire her for more than 17 and a half hours per week. So we had a seasonal title that we were able to use to bring her on as an employee. So the way it worked in our case was that we deposited the check from PLA, and then she entered and came onto the payroll as a seasonal summer employee. I think that answers the question, at least in one particular instance, but there's all different ways that libraries could do this.
And I'll paraphrase or put forward. Ken from Freeport was asking if you had to apply, and I know each of you applied separately for this program. It's a 1 year bit of fun, so it isn't there's no recurring award from PLA relative to this program.
Well, it's interesting because, Andrea, I think in your cohort in 2019, there were some duplicates from the 2018 program because they reapplied and they were accepted again. And then the year that I participated, 2018, there was a repeat from the previous year, 2017, who loved the program so much that they said to PLA, look, we don't need the funding. We don't want the funding. We'll pay for the travel. We'll pay for the hotel rooms. We'll pay the intern. We just want to be able to participate in the networking and the educational opportunities. So it is structured as a year-by-year grant program. but people got, I don't know. I don't know where this would go from here. Andrea and I have had conversations about, how do you actually adapt that to New York State? Well, the tour of the Library of Congress could become a tour of the New York State Library and potentially a meeting with the state librarian. The final wrap-up event where the interns give presentations to each other and to the mentors could be held at the NYLA headquarters or at a hotel nearby. So because we would only be statewide focused, the funding would be less, obviously. PLA was flying people in from Alaska. But I think too, I think part of it for me, for sure, and I think also for Cadest was, she got to meet high school students from Florida who were also working in a public library over that summer. And I got to meet, I made so many friends among the mentors, and just one in particular from Alabama. She worked at the Birmingham Public Library, and just having conversations with her about, what issues of EDI in Alabama are and what they're like in New York State. So, getting some people from all different parts of New York State together, both mentors and interns, to talk about these things, I think is a really powerful thing that we could do.
Yes to all of that.
I have a follow-up question of my own. The libraries that participated more than one time, was the repeaters, if you will, did they have different interns in their second year? So the
Yes.
library staff might have been the same, but it was a different intern.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So I'm seeing some +1s on people saying they would like to see this happen in New York State. So just reminding everyone, you can drop your questions into the chat pane, and we'll carry this forward. Or if you'd like to come up to the mic, if you raise your hand, we'll be happy to recognize you and give you the opportunity to speak.
And I see we're getting close to the end. So if we don't have any other questions, Cadest, I don't know if you want to try and say some parting words to the group. Sometimes I really, really don't like technology, and this is one of those times. Jeremy, do you see if she's still with us?
Well, the computer tells me that she's still here. Whether it's lying to me or not, I can't vouch
All
for.
right.
I know she had to pop to class.
Oh, that's right. She had to go to class. Yeah.
Yeah.
She was coming.
There she is.
There she is.
Huzzah.
Any final words, Cadest?
I just really wanted to say, thank you for letting me participate. I actually had to go back to class earlier, but just being a part of this discussion, hearing the possibility that this might be able to happen for other students is I really hope this works out, because I know how much of an impact it had on me. It really actually helped me figure out what I wanted to do in college, and I'm currently an international studies major, and that me discovering I wanted to do that really had a lot to do with my time at the library and the many opportunities that I was given, and it would be amazing to see other students be giving that opportunity as well. So it's amazing the conversations that are going on here.
Cadest, if we are able to do this in New York State, can you nod your head at me if you agree you're going to be our advisor?
I would love to be your advisor.
And maybe we can bring Dom in on it too, because I think that your perspective in helping us put together this program on a statewide level as an intern would be just invaluable.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cadest.
You're welcome.
Yes,
thank you for letting me be part of this conversation. Bye.
Many thanks to Cadest in the chat as well. People really appreciated having her here, and so we do offer our thanks for her squeaking us in between classes. It was certainly great to have her as part of the conversation, and seeing lots of other kudos for you both, Andrea and Cassie, for a wonderful and informative program. So thanks for that. As we're wrapping up, yes, lots and lots of thanks in the chat. So as we're running to the bottom of our time, just some housekeeping reminders. This session has been recorded and will be archived on the NILA conference site. We have a little bit of time before our next sessions. There are noontime lunch and learns, so keep an eye on that in the sessions tab. You can find a program that you can enjoy while enjoying whatever fine lunch you are providing yourself. And a reminder to please visit the exhibit hall and interact with our exhibitors that have helped underwrite today. Sorry, Debbie got me to chuckle with her "Go Sabres" comment in the chat. Cassie, you got 30 seconds. You want to plug the pack?
Yeah, so tonight at 5 p.m., we are having a virtual kinda karaoke event where Jeremy has agreed to sing a couple of songs that everyone who is participating has the opportunity to vote on. If you go to ny4bl.org, you'll see more information about that. And I'll just also say, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, we are a political action committee. We have a steering committee made up of people from across New York State, and we raise funds to make sure that our voices are heard in Albany, especially around budget time. And I'm sure you all know that next year is going to be extremely challenging for a whole bunch of reasons. So if you're interested in having a little bit of a fun time with Jeremy and throwing some money the PAC's way, we would certainly appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, with that, we will call it a wrap on this session. Thank you all, and thanks to Cassie and Andrea and Cadest for the fantastic presentation, and for being generous with the term "sing." Those of you that will be joining us at 5 o'clock will know that that's not an accurate term to describe what's going to happen.
Currently in the lead, Jeremy is going to have "Moves Like Mick," because "Beast of Burden" by the Rolling Stones is currently the #1 voted upon song.
All right. It's
going to be something.
I can all but guarantee to disappoint. So, all right.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.